Welcome to the Leadership with Vision podcast by Austin Gardner. For more information and resources, visit worldevangelism.net.
Well, I am glad to be back with you here at Leadership with Vision, and with my usual co-host, Brother Jeff Bush with Vision Baptist Missions. And today we want to talk about interns. And when I refer to interns here, I'm talking about people that are going on their short-term missions trip from our church and training center. We have the Our Generation Training Center, which is under the leadership of Robert Canfield. And to finish their preparation for being a missionary, they will spend 6 months on the field. Fact is, today, no, not when you get this, but as we're recording this, Ben Thomas is on his way to Thailand and will serve 6 months. He'll be back in January. And so Jeff wanted to talk about this. And I believe it's a good subject to discuss.
So I believe this can go in different facets here. It could be for the intern when he arrives over there on the field. What should he be doing? But it also could be for a church taking a missions trip. How can they get the most out of that? As well as a missionary taking a survey trip. How can he get the most out of that short time that he's going to have? So we will confront from different sides here, but how can you get the most out of your time? More bang for the buck, right? How can you learn the most from that missionary and take advantage of that time that you're, whether it's a week or whether it's, a month or 6 months? How can you learn the most so that when you return back, you're a changed person? All those experiences that you've had, all those things that you have seen, they have helped you. So we'll walk through a couple different ways, and I'll go ahead and start it off. The first one would be learn to ask questions when you arrive there on the field, whether you're an intern or whether you're taking your survey trip or whether you're a church taking your missions trip, whatever it is. Learn to ask the missionary questions. He's been there longer. He understands the culture, even if he's only been there a year. That means he's been there a year longer than you have. And so ask him questions about the culture, about the people, about the ministry, about his own life, if you will learn to ask questions, you will learn so much about a person, about a ministry, about that area. That is that missionary's expertise. So you as an intern, you as a visitor, learn to ask questions, and you can grow a lot. You can learn a lot by simply asking questions. Write down a big old list. Here's some of the questions that I want to have. Here's some of the things I want to know. When you get over there, just start shooting off questions and asking, and you'll grow a whole lot by just asking questions.
What kind of questions do you suggest that they ask?
Well, I would ask the general questions when you first get there, obviously, so tell me some about the people. What's their religion, what's their tradition, and why they do this. Observe a whole lot. Why did he just do this, or why did he just do that? If you're observing,
be careful though when you're asking these questions that they're not accusatory.
Correct, yes, sir. So, in other words, the attitude that you have when you ask these questions, obviously, you're not asking to interrogate; you're asking to learn, and I think that makes a big difference.
Yeah, you got to be careful that you're not saying, "Well, why don't you do this?" and "Why do you do this?" unless you're asking it in such a way as I'm here to be a learner, and that'll make all the difference in the world. That you would ask the question in the right way, that you would not be accusing them.
I think, not to rabbit trail too far off here, but I think if all of us could learn to ask questions in the right manner, then I think it would help us in many different areas. In other words, if you're on deputation, you're asking, I want to ask a pastor, but the tone that you're asking in, it might mean that the pastor's not going to answer, or the missionary, whoever, he might not respect the way that you're asking because he thinks that you're trying to trap him or you're trying to ask for a specific reason. So yeah, going back to there, ask the missionary, I'm just curious. I've seen this. Why would you do this? I would like to know so that I can grow, so that I can learn from this. So ask the right questions. Ask him, okay, brother, you've been from, where you were, you got saved, and then you went to college, and back up all the way before you get to the mission field as far as what he's doing. Back up and ask him some personal questions. Maybe there's some things that can help you. How did you get from this point to where you are? What are some of the things that you did? What are some of the things that God has taught you? You'll find out that most every missionary, most every person serving God, they've got some things in common, no matter what field they're on. Their love for God, their love for other people, their love to see people saved. They've got certain things in common. So ask him questions.
I would say also you're asking questions and you're observing. You've got to learn to look and watch and see what's happening so that you have an idea. You're seeing him say this or do this or go here, and you want to watch. You want to watch how the people are acting. You want to learn to study people. Study people where they are and what they're doing. That'll even help you ask questions. How do they do this? Why do they do this? How do you use that to get the gospel to them? And so learning how to ask the right question might have a lot to do with you learning how to observe, to watch, and study other people.
Wherever you go, a lot of people would come down and visit us when we served in Argentina. and they would say, how can they tell that we're Americans? And I'd say, well, Americans, they look like they walk a certain way and they act like a certain thing. Well, the honest truth is everybody can tell who Americans are. But when you begin to observe people, then you begin to do things like they do. And when you observe, why does a missionary do this? Why do the people do this? How do they eat that way? How do they act that way? When you begin to observe, you begin to learn things. And then you're accepted better by the missionary in the culture. A lot of leadership books will say, mimic how the other person acts. In other words, when you're sitting down talking with the person, if you kind of move to the side like they move, if you look the way they do, they feel comfortable with you. That would be Dale Carnegie principles. They get comfortable with you. When they're comfortable with you, then they'll open up more. And when they open up more, they'll share with you more. And when they share with you more, you learn more. So you've got to observe, ask the right questions, and then begin to observe how the other people do what they do.
And that's going to mean that you go with a learner's attitude. You are there to learn. You're not there to impose. You're not there to teach. You're not there to do it your way. You are literally there to let them be the leader and let them decide how things are going to be done. You're there to watch.
Well, I would say we've kind of talked about observing, and we've talked about asking the right questions. Let me say another one. Whether you're an intern, or whether you're a missionary on a survey going to visit another missionary, or whether you're a church group that's going over, another thing that you can do is remember that you want to be a blessing to them and not a burden. And I simply state that by, when it's time to, let's go to the basic things. When you go over their house and they invite you to have supper, well, don't just sit there afterwards. Maybe get up if that's what they do and take your bowl to the sink. Or maybe when they, I'm not saying pay everything. If you're the intern, you don't have all the money. But whatever you do, you want to be useful to them. You want to be a blessing to them. You want to go out of your way and not just, don't let them think that you're there like a parasite, like a leech, that, this guy doesn't do anything. He doesn't pay for anything. He doesn't help with anything. All he does is comes over here and he wants to eat our food and he just wants to use our time. Man, we don't even have time for him, because if you become a burden to them, they're not going to want you around, which means you're not going to learn anything. So find those little things. Watch how the kids do things. Watch how he does things. Help in any way possible. Go and say, hey, brother, I can get that. Go ahead and sit down. I'll take care of that. Just become a blessing and not a burden to the people. You'll learn a lot more that way, because it'll open up a lot more that way.
I think that could be summed up in two things that have been said here in this last few minutes, and that is, I'm a learner. I am watching and I am learning, but you could get in trouble if you're watching too much and you're not serving. So jump up and do every job. I was preaching last night. We got this kid that's a part of Vision. He's just a wonderful kid. His name is Greg. He's 15 years old, and I came down out of the pulpit to go get in line, and I was going to lay my Bible on the front row, and as my hand started down towards the pew with my Bible, Greg was already reaching across the pew to get my Bible, and I just shook my head to let him know that that's okay. I was just going to lay it there. But it's that attitude, attentive, serving, loving, helping, being there.
That attitude kind of, goes out and it shows in your actions. And I would say, be that servant, like Pastor just said, be that servant. In other words, don't jump in the front seat of the car, or don't, it's better. Proverbs says that, I don't remember exactly which proverb, but it says, better is it to be called up, and sit up front instead of them asking you to go to the back. So in other words, be that blessing to the people. Don't be that burden. Don't push your way in and try to have first place. Be the person who say, hey, don't worry, you guys go first. You guys get your food first. Or, hey, I'll jump in the back here with the kids. It's not a big deal. Or, hey, let me go out and get that for you. Hey, let me pick that up at the store, or whatever it is. Submit yourself. Remember, you're the guy underneath, as the intern, as the visitor, as, whatever it is. Submit yourself. Remember, in your actions, when they ask a question, let the other guy answer first. You don't have to jump in. You're not the knowledgeable guy. You are, maybe God has taught you things, but he's the one who's been there. So let him answer the question. Let him get first place in absolutely everything. Submit yourself to that person, to that missionary.
Now, it's been stated, but again, pay your way. Pay your way. Put special money in the offering plate. When the pastor or the missionary mentions a need, offer it if you can to give $5, $10, $50, whatever it would be within your means. Give as much as you can. But while I want Brother Jeff to continue telling us things that ought to be done as from the intern, I would like to remind the missionary, you cannot be a take advantage guy. You can't be like, well, I got these interns and they can support my ministry, they can pay for my stuff, and they can do things for me. You've got to be thinking thinking in terms of, I'm here to serve them. So everything that's been said, you got to flip it around and say, while they're here, I'm going to help them not make the mistakes I made. I'm going to love them. I'm going to be kind to them. I'm going to be a blessing to them, so that everything, in other words, it is both of you trying to serve each other.
You can jump in, get involved no matter where you're at, no matter even if you understand the language. Your attitude is, it's kind of that spirit. Everybody knows when there's a tense type of atmosphere around. When you have a good spirit, everybody wants you around, or everybody will welcome you in. And so have that good spirit. In other words, when you walk in the church with the pastor and, he just started a church, let's say, and you're an intern or you're a visitor, you're that guy on the survey, walk in there and say, hey, preacher, can I put the chairs down? Can I help out? If he picks up a rag and starts cleaning off, jump in there and say, hey, preacher, let me get this. You stand over to the side. I'll start sweeping this off or whatever. If you have that sweet spirit, and then they begin to talk to you and they're talking in another language or whatever, you just look and smile. Your facial expressions, that smile, it's an international language. Everybody understands it. Have a sweet spirit. Want to help. Everybody understands it, and they'll want you around. They'll say, man, this guy's a blessing. They don't even understand you, but they can still say, this guy's a blessing. We really like him because you have a sweet spirit. And so, man, when you get over there, have a good attitude, have a good spirit, submit yourself, jump in, get involved, ask the questions, learn from it. One other quick one, Pastor, if I could throw in here, as an intern or a guy taking a survey or whatever, go ahead and have a journal. We say girls have diaries, guys have journals, right? But write it down. When you leave from there, so many things have happened. So many things are so new right now. But after a while, they're going to become, even after a week, you won't remember exactly what's new. You're going to go back to your home church and you're going to tell them, or as a missionary, you're going to go back and you need to write all these things down. So write down, like, I can't believe this is how the people were, or there were people everywhere, or we passed out tracts this day and man, they just grabbed them out of my hand, or I remember talking to the missionary, he said this. Journal everything. Write it all down. Short pencil is better than a long memory. You write it down, you'll be able to use those things when you go back on deputation or to your home church or telling and sharing with other people. Write those things down. Journal absolutely everything.
I personally do keep a journal. I keep it online. I use an app called Day One. And this morning I have already, I've read before Jeff got here. I read several books, and it's got, just got the names of the books I read in today. Because since I do everything on the, I don't know what you call it, online now and electronically, it's often that I flat out lose what I have done. And so I want to keep it. I want to remember what books I've read and so on. By the way, if you heard noise a while ago, we couldn't figure out what it was, but I have a camera that you can use to look at my to watch the house when I'm gone, and my granddaughter, who is only 2 years old, knows how to access that. And so I'm sorry you heard that. We're not going to go back and redo that part of the podcast, but that was Abby looking in, and we were listening to her. She had the microphone on so she could talk to her granddaddy. So there you go. A lot of fun, but that's kind of what was happening. I think that is funny as I'll get out. But thank you for putting up with that little bit of disturbance there. Again, as you are the intern, please respect the home of the person that you're visiting. So you're staying there. If you are in his house or you even go to sit, don't leave plates, dishes, cups, forks, crumbs on the table. Don't leave the house messy. Realize that the missionary that's opened their home for you has plenty of work to do, and you're adding to it if you're not careful to make sure everything's clean.
Sometimes people say, hey, come on in, make yourself at home. Well, don't take that to an extreme. You're like, okay. And you just walk in, put your feet up on the couch, and you don't know the traditions of his house. He might tell his kids, don't put your feet on the furniture, or, don't just run in there and get you a drink if you're not going to offer anybody else a drink, or don't you just walk in there and grab you some cookies.
Yeah, please stay out of his kitchen.
So leave it. When he says make yourself at home, you got to be careful. What he means and what you mean might be two different things. So respect the other guy. That's his house. That's his family. That's his food. That's his kitchen. That's his stuff. Be cautious. Be respectable about those things.
And again, you're paying your own way. You're picking up after yourself. You're cleaning things up. You're serving. You're never talking negatively, nor are you journaling negatively about the missionary. You want to be very careful that you're not journaling something that says, well, they were fighting today, and somebody's going to come along and read later that you have sat in judgment of their family. If they've opened the door and let you into their family, act like that.
Without a doubt. Sometimes we're ungrateful in the things that we do. Well, let's not show that in our attitude. Show respect for the other person. Be grateful for what they're doing for you, and help out around the house. Help out in the ministry. If they're going to do something, you do it, and do it twice as hard. Make sure that you earn your way. You earn their respect. That you fill those shoes that you're expected to fill as an intern or as a visitor. Be a blessing so that he wants you to come back, not that he can't wait for you to leave.
And also, I'd like to talk to you just a second about the language. I would challenge you to be very careful in the language, to really work at learning the language. Now, I know that if you're on a 2-week trip, that doesn't apply to you. But those of you that are going there for 6 months, one of the reasons you're going is to find out if you can handle living overseas. Can you handle eating the strange foods? Can you handle being away from your mama and your daddy? Can you handle being away from your girlfriend or your boyfriend? Can you handle cross-cultural relationships and learning a language? And so that means you're going to have to immerse yourself in this language and give yourself the opportunity to really learn the language. And that is a lot harder than you might think.
An idea just came to me, Pastor, that we have both seen, and that it could be a big problem, and that would be if you do have a boyfriend or girlfriend back home, if you do have family back home or whatever it is, be very careful to, when you go into the missionary's house, just sit there all day on your device, jumping on Facebook or texting or whatever. You might be there corporally and, in body, but if you're always, it's rude to sit there and always be talking back home, and while you're with other people. And so be very careful. And, at the same time, maybe you have a girl back home, or maybe you have, family back home. Maybe you miss them. That's understandable, but you got to be respectable. You have to be careful about the whole time, just you're more at home than you are on the mission field. You're there to learn. People have helped you and given you money to get there. You've raised that money. So be careful, be wise, be all there if you're there, and learn from the missionary, learn from the people. Don't just be texting back or Facebooking back the whole time and talking to other people. That's not good. You're going to rob yourself of many lessons that you could have while you're visiting that missionary. Be careful about the habits of social media while you're on that visit. You want to learn.
So you can have some time to communicate back home, and you can have some time to do any of that you want to do. Just please do your best to limit it to when you're alone, when you don't have an opportunity to be with the missionary, that you could be learning from what's going on, and you can be using your time wisely. Otherwise, you could have stayed in America. If you miss America that much, it may be a sign that you don't need to be overseas.
Another one would be, don't compare this new country to America. If somebody asks you, hey, so do you like this just as much as you like, where you're from, the United States? And some people are a little bit too bold in saying, no, man, this is nothing like where I come from. There's no green here. Or, the people aren't as nice. You could really offend the people or hurt the people. And you remember, you're going to be leaving and the missionary is staying there. So you don't want to leave a bad attitude. You don't want him to feel like, man, I really am missing out. The whole time you're talking about Chick-fil-A, and that guy hasn't seen a Chick-fil-A for 3 years, for crying out loud. Be careful about talking about those things. You don't want to make the guy feel horrible, or the people, you don't want them to think that you don't like it. So enjoy your time, but have the right attitude about it.
And don't be critical of their church or their people or how many are attending. Be there to learn all that you can possibly learn.
Pastor, allow me to mention one more, and I know it's about time to close out on this podcast, but I'd say you can even prepare for your trip before you ever leave. If this is your survey trip or your internship or whatever, you can prepare for it before you ever leave for the field. In other words, study up on that country. Get to know that missionary's, the names of his kids and his wife and about him, where he came from. Get to know, do your homework beforehand, and when you get there, boy, they're going to appreciate it. The people appreciate that you know about their sports or about what they like. The missionary will appreciate that you know their kids. Even if you don't know them that well, you know the names, and they're going to be like, wow, Uncle so-and-so just got here. First time they met you, but they'll love you just because you know their names and their birthdays. You've taken some concern in their lives. And so you can do your homework before you ever get on that survey trip.
I think that's been some very good advice. I appreciate you taking the time, Brother Jeff, to help everybody that goes on an internship. Do you have anything else you want to add on this particular podcast?
I would say this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Enjoy it. So do your homework, have a great attitude, prepare for it, learn all that you can while you're there.
We are living the dream, and that's what you're doing. So enjoy serving God, enjoy being on the mission field, enjoy using this. Well, thank you so much for listening to Leadership with Vision. Thank you to Jeff Bush, Director of Vision Baptist Missions, who brings so much wisdom and insight into this, and I really appreciate it. And you're welcome to send us questions and comments. We'd love to hear from you. God bless every one of you.
You've been listening to Leadership with Vision by Austin Gardner. Visit worldevangelism.net to discover more podcasts and useful articles.